Game Week 22 is here, so it's time to lock in those FPL teams. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan and it's time for me to make my team selection ahead of the new game week after a nice green arrow in Game Week 21. Let's get going. So as I mentioned, Game Week 21 was pretty kind to me, and that comes down to one man in particular, Alexander Isak. Going for the captaincy on this man really boosted my rank this week with 16 points doubled to 32. And I think that just goes to show in these weeks where, you know, you have a choice between several different players, Salah, Palmer, Isak. They were all great captain picks, but I think they all had similar points potential, particularly when you considered Isak's injury risk. And some people maybe weren't quite willing to take the risk on Isak, but I think in these kind of weeks where there is a split decision, you can afford to go a bit different, and sometimes it will go your way. Not all the time. On this occasion, it went my way. On another occasion, maybe it won't. But still, very, very happy to get a nice big Isak captain haul, and I think I will continue to back my gut on these split captaincy decisions. Plenty of other FPL returns, actually. Lots of attacking returns with Salah, ironically, the only one of my attackers to blank in Game Week 21. And I benched Chris Wood, despite the fact that I'd only just bought him in Game Week 21 to catch those price rises. So maybe I should have played Wood instead of Salah, but that would have been a bit crazy, wouldn't it? But not many points dropped really there, and it really was the defensive areas which let me down. Raya, Trent and Gabriel conceding goals, which meant no clean sheets in that department. But 80 points is pretty good. A big rank boost up to 136k. I am recording this video before the Manchester United and I guess Brighton games. I guess those are the two main teams that could cause me some issues. So I expect to see my rank drop just a little bit. I'm expecting to drop down to at least 150k by the Game Week 22 deadline. But hopefully we can keep things fairly tight. Hopefully Bruno doesn't punish me too much, but I think he will do well against Southampton tonight. But there we go. That's my Game Week 21 scores. Let's move on to Game Week 22. And before we do that, you're on a yellow card if you haven't liked the video yet. If you don't like the video before the end, then you're going to have a red card, which will ban you from watching next video. Maybe that'll be a good thing. But guys, please do like the video. Do subscribe as well if you want to follow along with my team each and every game week. So 1 free transfer and 0.1 in the bank. Let's set up my team for Game Week 22 and see if we can continue the trend of green arrows. And we're starting off with Raya in goal against Aston Villa. And I think this is a actually reasonably good fixture. Aston Villa are a mid-table attack, so I'm not really too concerned about Arsenal conceding too many chances. The fact that it's a home game does help Raya a little bit. So I'm certainly more confident this game week than perhaps I was last week against Tottenham Hotspur. So hopefully Raya can make some saves and maybe keep a clean sheet this week. We need it. In defence, we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold here against Brentford. A good opportunity for attacking returns, and we will cover the attacking potential of some of the defenders in the game of FPL in just one moment. But Gabriel is my next defender here. Unlucky not to get an assist in Game Week 21. I wonder if the ball did hit Dragusin before it hit Solanke before finding the back of the net. But Gabriel showing again that he is a threat from those set pieces. It's just what he does. And Lewis Hall is my final defender. He plays at home against Bournemouth, a team that takes plenty of shots but often struggles to find the back of the net. So let's just have a look at the defenders and the best defenses in the league. We're still seeing Arsenal as the best defense at the moment. 6.3 non-penalty expected goals against in the past 10 game weeks, which is very, very good indeed. And even in the last couple of fixtures, you know, we saw against Spurs, Arsenal only conceded 0.83 XG. So even though they did concede in that game, you know, it was maybe a little unlucky for Arsenal to concede. We saw a big deflection for the Son goal that ended with the ball in the back of the net. So, you know, we can't really account for these things all of the time. I think in FPL, we just have to accept that luck is a part of the game, and all we can do is play the odds. Sometimes a great defense who puts up a great defensive performance, there can be an individual error or a deflection or something like that that can lead to conceding goals. But we shouldn't be too down on ourselves on that. We have to question the decisions and not the outcome. And I still think the decision to hold on to those Arsenal defenders is good enough. It's good enough. Obviously, there are maybe some other defenders that we like the look of. I know a lot of people are looking at Nottingham Forest defenders at the moment, but Forest have actually dropped into the bottom half of the table for non-penalty expected goals against. So even though it might be nice to pick up a Forest defender ahead of the Southampton fixture, it has to be said, well, is it a necessary transfer? Because with double game weeks and blank game weeks coming up very, very soon, we do need to be a little bit more conservative with how we spend our transfers. We also see Liverpool and Newcastle in the top 3 defenses here, which is obviously positive, as that is my defense right now. Liverpool, another team that really unlucky to concede against Forest, only around 0.3 XG conceded during that game. And Newcastle are another team that's just been keeping plenty of clean sheets recently, doing really well, and I expect that to continue. In terms of the attacking output, there are 4 defenders that stand out for the best potential for attacking returns. When we look at expected goal involvements among defenders, we see Trent, Hall, Munoz and Gvardiol all sticking around 0.3 expected goal involvements per game. So it's very nice to have sort of those defenders as well. And given that Trent and Hall are part of that big 4 best attacking defenders for the underlying data and are also in the top 3 best defenses for non-penalty expected goals against, I love these 2 picks in particular. And of course, Gabriel, 0.2 expected goal involvements per game as well. So very, very nice for him indeed. Let's move on into the midfield positions next, and we've got Mo Salah in a more favourable fixture against Brentford. It's certainly a nicer fixture than the game against Nottingham Forest. We see that actually Brentford are one of the weaker defences in the Premier League so far this season. They track around 1.43 expected goals against per match, which is pretty low, to be fair. And I think certainly with the addition of, if we account for non-penalty expected goals against, Brentford are even lower, I believe. So we are hoping for penalties from Salah. I think this is going to be a good game week for him, and I think any doubts we had around Salah from Game Week 21 are quickly going to disappear back to his usual self in this next run of fixtures. Cole Palmer's also in my team. Wolves at home is the fixture, a team who have just conceded 3 goals to an informed Newcastle side. But there has to be some question marks around Chelsea at the moment and their performances, as they're really failing to get wins on the board at the moment. But still one of the strongest attacks in the Premier League, and Cole Palmer with 3 10-pointers in his last 4 game weeks is certainly the man of the hour at Chelsea. Every time he scores a goal, he seems to get the 3 bonus points as well because of how involved he is on the pitch, creative, also taking shots on target, conceding fouls. It's all very good for bonus points, so he's doing very well. Gordon is another player in my midfield. He faces Bournemouth at home. From an attacking point of view, I don't know if this is as good. We see Bournemouth as one of the better defences in the Premier League at the moment, and outside of that Chelsea game last week, they rarely concede more than 1 goal per game. So it's going to be a case of Newcastle, a great team in form, versus a pretty decent defence. Can they break down a Bournemouth? I think there's definitely potential there, as we saw Chelsea were able to do last week, carving through Bournemouth for what seems like the first time in quite a few game weeks that a team has been able to break down Bournemouth in that way. And Ismaila Sarr is my final midfielder. Finally an FPL return for him in Game Week 21 with the assist, and he's still tracking with some of the best attacking numbers in the midfield position. So let's bring up the midfielders here, and we see our expected goal involvements per game for our midfielders over the past 6 game weeks. Salah and Palmer, as expected, right at the top of this list. After that, we see some more expensive kind of midfielders, Bruno, Foden in there, Savinho and Burmo, and then after that, Gordon and Sarr. So we do still have 4 of the best midfielders in the game as my 4-man midfield. So I'm very, very pleased with that. The stats are good. The data is good. I think the fixtures are still pretty good for a lot of these players as well. So happy to continue with this midfield for the time being. And I think double and blank game weeks will be the thing that impacts where I spend my transfers in the midfield areas. Let's go up front. Alexander Isak. How good has he been recently? Really seriously good. 2 goals and an assist last game week, and he seems to return every single week. So despite everything positive I said about Bournemouth, I don't think anyone is a match for Alexander Isak right now. He is just at the top of his game, peak of his career, doing so well. Really looking forward to him against Southampton, by the way. I think that could be a real captain decision to be made. Nicholas Jackson still in my team, an assist last game week, but he missed plenty of chances in that game as well. We've actually seen that Jackson has got something like 2.8 XG in the past 6 game weeks, 5 games. And has only scored 1 goal from that. So we're going to have a look at some stats in a moment, but firstly, we'll put Chris Wood on the field here. He plays Southampton at home, which is a very tantalising prospect because of Southampton being just so poor. By far the worst defence, worst team in the league. And Wood's form is just so good. 3 goals in 3 games, and he seems to score from every shot he takes. 1 shot, 1 goal against Liverpool. Penalty taker as well. These are all very useful things. So let's have a look at these forwards. And Isak is still number 1, top 4 expected goal involvements per game, 1.3. Really impressive. If you haven't got Isak in your team by now, what are you waiting for? In second place, we do see Watkins, but he does have a bit of rotation risk with Duran waiting in the fold. And Nicholas Jackson is currently in 3rd for expected goal involvements per start over the past 6 game weeks, 0.7. And that is a lot to do with the insane amount of shots that he is getting, the insane amount of shots he is taking. 4.4 shots per game is absolutely incredible. And I know he hasn't been returning recently, and it's been very disappointing being a Jackson owner. But the data is way ahead of a lot of the other forwards that we're talking about right now. He is literally in 3rd place for expected goal involvements per start. And we can talk about Jackson being a poor finisher, but that certainly wasn't the case for the first quarter of this season and the second half of last season. He was tracking around his XG numbers. Is he in a bit of a low confidence moment? He's hitting the post. He is getting very close with his shots. He's taking on good shots that aren't quite there. I think what we see in the world of FPL over the years that I have played it is when a player does have really good data, that usually does end up being converted into actual FPL returns. It's just a case of how patient you can be with a player and whether you think there are other factors at play. Now, for me, if it turns out that Jackson has a blank game week in 29, and that will happen if Arsenal overturn their 2-0 deficit against Newcastle in the League Cup semi-final, then Jackson will suddenly become on the chopping block for me. But right now, looking around these other forwards, the best data really is players like Jackson, and I don't think there's any other reliable assets out there to go for. We could maybe talk about Gakpo or Mateta. I've already got Chris Wood in my team, so I don't need to worry about trying to get Wood into my team. But even Wood, we know his data is horrible, but he's an absolute freak. He is just, this whole season, takes 2 shots per game, 1 of them will find the back of the net. And he's done that so consistently over this season and the second half of last season that I think we can kind of maybe assume that is normality at this point. Jackson, on the other hand, I know you could say, well, Jackson's the opposite of that. But really, we're looking at Jackson really underperforming over a fairly short period of time when we look at the grand scheme of things in the past year. In the past year, most of the time, he has been tracking around scoring per 1 XG, which is fine, which is good. So, I'm happy with my forward lineup. Let's move to the bench. Fabianski is on here. We've got Castagna as well. I think I'm going to go for Hall ahead of Castagna. Fulham kind of dropping into mid-table for defences. And I think Newcastle and their defence and their team in general is so good right now that even though Bournemouth is probably a tougher fixture than Leicester, the fact that Leicester's away, the fact that Newcastle are so much better, and the fact that Hall is looking better for attacking numbers as well, I'm going to back Hall ahead of Castagna, but Castagna waits in the fold there, ready to come on if we do have any major issues in the starting 11. Rodgers away against Arsenal is going to be second on my bench, and Newcastle away for Kirkes. He's going to stay firmly on my bench as well. I think the plan is with Kirkes is to bench him for the next 3 game weeks and then play him against Southampton when Hall plays Man City away. I think that's a nice rotation there. As for Castagna, I can't really see a time where I'm going to play him, to be honest. So I wonder if moving him to someone like Mykolenko for double game week 24 might be the answer to some of the questions that I have around my FPL team right now. So we'll see what happens there, but it's certainly on my mind at the moment. But as for my team right now, I think we're in a good place. Obviously, people are going to say, Dan, you need to get Bruno maybe, who looks really good at the moment. You need to get some more Nottingham Forest players. Hey, maybe if we had unlimited transfers, that would be good. But I want to really start holding onto some transfers, rolling some free transfers, because the plan is, and let's bring up the graphic for the doubles and the blanks in the near future. I would like to roll some transfers ready for blank game week 29, because I'm going to attempt to navigate game week 29 using free transfers only and no chips, and saving my chips for later on in the season. As we kind of mentioned in last game week's video. That's the plan right now. And also I need to make sure I save a minimum of one free transfer to get an additional Liverpool player for double game week 24. We also mentioned Mykolenko as another player I might buy as well for that double game week. So all in all, I think I'm going to roll the transfer this game week. I think it is just the time, unless you have a major issue in your team. I don't think I have that right now. It is going to be a good time to try and prepare, try and plan ahead for what is to come in FPL, because things are about to get very, very interesting indeed. And it's going to become a time where those who are strategic really benefit the most in FPL. Anyone can make a transfer each week for the best player for the next game week, but planning 6, 7, 8, 20 game weeks ahead is far more difficult, and that's something that I hope to capitalize on over the crowd to push myself as high up the ranks as physically possible. And top 100k is the next goal. We have currently got the captain's armband on Mo Salah against Brentford. I think he's going to be back to his usual best self, but Cole Palmer takes the vice captain. Not really interested in Isak or Wood for captaincy this week, because I do think Bournemouth are good, and I think Wood is really capped at 1 goal per game. We've only seen him get 2 goals in a game once so far this season, and only 2 times he's returned multiple times in a game, where Salah, half of the games this season, he has returned multiple times. So yeah, Salah certainly with a much higher ceiling, and I like those high ceiling picks in FPL. So Salah is my captain for now. I'm open to Cole Palmer. I'm a little bit open to Isak, but it's between those 3 for me. And if you want a more in-depth conversation about captaincy, I definitely recommend you check out this week's Stick to FPL episode, which will go up tomorrow on Friday morning. So check that one out when that comes out, because we have a really in-depth conversation about captaincy this week, if you just want to hear more discussion about the pros and cons of each player. But with my team set for now, let's plan a little bit into the future. So we are once again on the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. If you want to check this tool out, and if you want to get access to all of the stats we showed on screen today, then go check out Fantasy Football Hub for free using the link in the description. I use this tool on all of their tools really non-stop to help plan out my FPL team. But as we kind of mentioned before, I'm looking at a transfer for Alisson as a goalkeeper. Raya to Alisson is something I want to do in the near future, because I really like the look of this double game week from a defensive point of view. Bournemouth away, Everton away, 2 teams that don't score too many goals but also don't concede too many goals. So I think going for a defensive asset will be a big benefit. And also, if Liverpool do blank in game week 29, and we'll find out after the game week 24 deadline, that's when we'll find out who is going to be blanking in 29 for sure, and also who's going to be doubling a little bit later on in the season as well. I think going for Alisson allows me to simply play Fabianski in game week 29 if there was to be a blank for Liverpool in 29, which I think there will be, to be totally honest. And Fabianski actually plays Everton in game week 29, so that's going to be actually quite nice for him. And my team rating is currently at 95%. My game week rating is at 99%. The only real, I think it will drop down if I captain Salah. Yeah, it's down to 98% now. But I think the only thing that can really get this to 100% would be to go for some more Forest players, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I just think we need to be more sensible with our transfers. And it's not like Raya, Gabriel, Trent or Hall are looking like terrible picks or anything like that. They've been fine. They've been a little unlucky. Points will come. I'm pretty confident about that one. Midfield, I think, is looking very, very nice indeed. And in terms of forwards, people will have things to say about Jackson. I'm definitely open to the idea, depending on who blanks in Game Week 29 and who is due to double later on in the season, I am very tempted to do something sort of like maybe do, I don't know, maybe a Sarr and a Jackson to a Bruno and maybe a cheaper forward like a Wissa or someone like that. So I'm going to keep my eye on who's going to blank in Game Week 29. But the teams currently at risk of blanking are Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Spurs and Aston Villa. They all have a chance of blanking in Game Week 29. I have players from all of those teams other than Spurs. So depending on who blanks, and I'm waiting for more information on that, that's going to massively impact my transfer plans. So for now, we roll, and we hopefully... Well, we know we're going to get more information, but hopefully a scenario presents itself where we can be reactionary with a lot of transfers to really make sure we are tackling blank Game Week 29 and double Game Week in 33 very, very effectively. Let's see how we get on with that. But for now, it's all about patience, my friends. But do check out Fantasy Football Hub if you want to check out the, they've got a lot of projections for double game weeks on there as well. All of the data, the My Team planning tool as well, all down in the description. Go check it out right now. But aside from that, thank you so much for watching. Do leave a like before you go. Subscribe if you're new around here. Check out Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid, which dropped yesterday if you would like to. And I will see you tomorrow for another video. And I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.